Hi everyone. So this week we are going over the contribution life skill. And so as early childhood educators, we can help children in our daily interactions, by providing them with many opportunities to use their energies and skills to contribute to the group as individuals and with others. So really, what is the contribution life skill? So here are some pointers for really what it is, right? And so the first one is the child demonstrates the ability to seek solutions to problems. Shows them a sense of purpose. Shows the child shows confidence in a range of abilities and in the capacity to accomplish tasks and take on new tasks. Recognize the importance of their role as a member of the family, the class, and the community, and performs various tasks that contribute to the well being of the group. So, one way we can help with with developing the contribution life skill is helping children develop a positive self talk. And so, positive or negative self talk is learned. And so the power of positive self talk, if you can see from this, photo, is the benefits of it. It includes, builds confidence. It can improve their attitude, right? If they're speaking positively to themselves, they'll have a better outlook on, a harder situation. It promotes self love, helps cope with stress, allows for taking risks, encourages motivation, and it helps children work through challenges, right? And so we can assist with developing positive self-talk through the language that we use as the adults around them. However, we talk to children is how they learn to talk to themselves, right? And so if we're using language directed towards them that expresses incompetency, they'll feel incompetent, right? And they'll act that way. An example of a child who may have negative self talk is you'll hear often, I can't do it, without them even trying. When they're faced with a task that they haven't tried before, and that fear of like failure, right? And so something you could say to a child to help develop positive self talk is things like, you worked really hard on that. You got this. You're really trying. And so these things are great ways to help children focus on their effort, as opposed to the outcome. Other things you could say to help with a child with developing positive self talk is when a child is, let's say, ready to give up and they're feeling really frustrated. So you could say things like, it's okay to make a mistake. It takes practice. You can do this. And you can even say, like, I learned, by making mistakes too. It's, totally normal. What can we do here? And so, another positive thing, or another way we can develop positive self talk for children, is when you hear them say negative self talk, like they've picked up maybe somewhere else, you can help them reframe it, right? What's a better way we could say that, or a more positive way we can say that, or if they're really having a hard time, you could help them and coach them through that. And another thing we can do, right, is show modeling of a positive self-talk for ourselves. So we can model for the children when we make a mistake, right? And saying like, oops, I made a mistake, and, that's okay. We make mistakes sometimes, and, let's make it right. And so that can help also grow that part of the life skill. So another positive piece of the contribution life skill you can provide as the teacher into that development is providing encouraging and descriptive feedback. And so when you focus on the outcome of, let's say they're working on something, right? Like the painting, this child's painting in this photo, right? And let's say you're standing there and you're focused on their outcome and say, oh, wow, you drew such a pretty tree. They're, or it's, you're saying how cute it is or something. It has them the child focus more on praise and gratification rather than, innate feelings, right? And so, so let's say if they always, when they show work to a parent, which is really common, the first response is, oh my gosh, it's so pretty, or oh my gosh, you did all that, like, wow, right? And there's nothing to, give in terms of descriptive feedback or encouraging self-reflection. You're teaching the child to not look inwards in terms of getting self-gratification for their work. You're teaching them to look outwards, right? And so if they don't receive that positive praise when they show it, they may start to also feel like they didn't do a good job, and that they'll feel, this sense of incompetence. And so it's just some examples provided for like what is descriptive feedback, right? And so these are some examples for like talking about, if they're painting, let's say, and you could say, oh, I see you made it all swirly up here on top. So you're really more so focusing on the descriptions of what they made, or like, look how many different colors you used, or wow, you used all the same blue. So it's just showing you are interested in what they actually drew. Another one is, non-drawing, right? You could say, oh, wow, you got all the way across the monkey bars. That's descriptive feedback. So you're focusing on the actual action of the play. And then some examples for focusing on process is having them kind of explain to you the process of creating their work. And so the first example you can see here is, tell me how you made this swirly part up here. How did you decide what colors to use on this? And these sort of questions show that you're interested, and just show, that you want to know more about their work, not just the outcome, right? Their process. And then some examples of encouraging self-reflection was, what's your favorite part of this painting? Or do you like the colors you use for this painting? What do you think of that tower? How do you feel about getting all the way across the monkey bars? So it helps them reconnect with their own thoughts or feelings, as opposed to looking for like your thoughts on what they did, right? And so part of contribution, I know we talked, I believe, about this, and probably the collaboration life skill, so I won't go over this too heavy, but is part of contribution is also supporting problem-solving development, right? Because in order to contribute in a larger group, you need to know how to problem solve, right? And so you want to help children work through these processes, and help them start to be able to work through these on their own without, you present as well for all of them. So the first one is, finding out what is wanted or needed. And so really seeing like what the actual issue is, right? And then you want to define the problem. So you really want to get down to the basic of it, right? So let's say it's, fighting over a toy. You want to find out what is wanted on, both sides, or what's needed on both sides. Excuse me. And then you want to be able to define that problem. So you want to be able to provide a definition, just as, oh, okay, so, it looks like so-and-so and, so-and-so would like to play with the same toy, right? So you're just providing a basic general definition for the problem. And then you could even go a little bit deeper in the problem if so-and-so had it first and walked away, things like that. And then you can go into brainstorming and choosing a solution to try. And it's very helpful for I think we talked about in the last lecture of having children come up with solutions first before you provide your own, because sometimes we think we know all the answers and it's easy just to jump into problem solving mode, right? But we want them to come up with some solutions because sometimes they really already do know the solution and it's not what you thought. Maybe someone was already over the toy and they're ready to give it up. And so we didn't need to do sharing of it. And so someone's like, what, actually, I'm done playing with it. And so they already have a solution to try. And then the fourth one is checking in and seeing if the solution worked, right? Because if it didn't work, you'll want to go back and try a different solution until they're successful at problem solving. And then I forgot to add before these four is you always want to make sure they are, calm and regulated first, right? So if they're still, if one or both parties are still, highly upset and dysregulated, it's not the time to go into problem solving. So you'll want to help regulate their emotions first. So they're in the calmer position to move on to problem solving. So how to help, these are some ways to help children identify their importance to the community, so helping them connect to the larger community or, the classroom. And so some examples I made here are, let's say a child's out, and they return, they were sick, or they went on vacation. You could say something like, Stella, we missed you so much while you were out. We are so happy you are back. Or another one is, to help them feel connected to the community. You could also say something like, oh, wow, Kenji, you are so fast as Flash. Can you help the class by bringing over to the circle the talking stick? And so they'll feel like this sense of, connection, and also using their individual talent to help the larger group. And so these are two activities here that I wanted to go over that are really helpful with helping the children identify with their community. And so the first one is each one teach one activity. And so let me go to that real quick. Okay, and so basically this one, you're helping children gain confidence in their skills, in their own individual skills and knowledge, by using them as teachers to teach the other children in the classroom what they already know, right? Or maybe for even children in younger rooms. And so let's say one child has learned how the letters in the alphabet or the numbers 1 to 10, and using them as the teacher to teach someone else who hasn't learned that skill yet. And so it uses them in their own community to have their individual strengths, right, and talents, and to feel that way, and then also be able to teach others with it, right? And you want to make sure all of them are kind of feeling that teacher set of role at some point, right? You don't want a child who maybe has less skills than others to feel a little bit maybe that they don't have, talents or something to teach others. So you really want to be mindful of making sure they all have an opportunity to teach another child. Another one is called Random Acts of Kindness Board Activity. And so I really like this one because it focuses on, helpful acts and recognizing basically just any like kindness act that's happened in the classroom. And it's just cute because it's the children identifying it in each other. So you would have, so basically the children would observe each other for the acts of kindness, and then record the acts on self-adhesive notes. So they would share, either writing it down if they're old enough, or they're telling, the teacher or helper to write it down, that what kindness act they saw in another peer. And then you would have the child who observed it, the kindness act, attach it to the note to attach the note to like a bulletin board. And then the notes would be read and then distributed, and then this is another important one to like make sure everyone is, observed at one point for random acts of kindness, right? So we want to make sure like all the children are, at some point represented on the kindness board. So another item we can contribute to the contribution life skill is helping children recognize fairness, bias, and injustice. And so as children develop, they begin to identify their own characteristics and the unique characteristics of those around them who aren't like themselves, right? And they may develop fear or discomfort with differences and might avoid those who aren't like themselves, and take preferences for those that are more similar to themselves. And, if they're in a more setting where there's a lot more diversity, you might see this less, but you may see this sort of split more in settings where there is less diversity, and less, like the children have less experiences with different cultures. And so things you can do in the classroom is modeling and acknowledge respect for diversity, and really providing the message that all people are different, and that's, not just okay, it's even good, right? And so you might hear things like children saying, maybe putting down children for their color of skin or their hair or their size. Maybe they're really tall, or maybe they are bigger, right? And so, but the descriptors they could use, the children, right, might be harsher and more critical and unjust. And so it's important to identify when that happens in the classroom and help teach, how people are different, and, that's completely good and okay. And it's okay to identify the differences, right? We aren't all equal. So it's okay to identify we're different. We just want to make sure we're doing it with kindness and respect. And so you can help, replace the harsher words, right, with just differences and observation. So if another child calls another child fat, you could help with modeling and with replacing the word fat with, yes, like they are a bigger size than you, and just making it more on descriptors, right, and just differences in sizes, and that's normal and okay, as opposed to more negative type of wording. It's helpful to develop fair and unfair, like language in the classroom. And this is, fair and unfair are basically like very basic words to start teaching equity and bias. And so some examples are like, let's see, for like a positive. So for like a fair example, Or like, me and Emily are sharing the stickers. And so you could say something like, you two found a fair way to make sure you both got to use what you need. And then let's see more of the unfair round, right? Is Andrew took the computer and my name was the next one on the list. So you could say that sounds unfair. How can we fix it? And so I do want to add, which is the last bullet point on here, is that teaching. So like, you want to teach children that equal doesn't equate to fair or unfair, and because there will always be individual differences or needs, and that is fair, right? And so you don't want to teach a child that everything is completely equal at all times, and that's the fair, and that if some things are sometimes unequal, then it's unfair. So like, let's say if a child gets more help on an assignment because they have a learning disability, you wouldn't say that is unfair, right? Because the other child who has no learning disability gets less time. Well, they don't need the extra help, right? So you do want to teach that, fair and or unfair, fair or unfair does not equate to equal on anything, because there will always be differences, individual differences, and we want to identify that and let that be the norm. We also want to teach assertive language to children who are bullied, instead of jumping in and doing it for them. So, and it might not even be bullied. It could just be that another child has said, something that wasn't kind, but they also don't know any better, right? And the child is just trying to describe the differences between them two, and they're using words that are harsher, right? And so maybe the other child isn't, actually bullying them, but hurting their feelings, right? You want to teach the other child basically who's receiving in these instances of bullying or just, mean things have been said to them. You want to teach them some assertive language. And so it's easy for us as the adults just to like jump in and protect them, right? But what's helpful is, but what's unhelpful about that is you're not teaching them to, take a stand for themselves and stick up for themselves, right? So you want to teach the children to be able to do it for themselves. One, it sets them up for long term, right? Taking care of themselves, but also it sets them up for times where you might not be around, or you didn't hear something that was said. So you do want to teach children to, stick up for themselves. And let's think of an example, like someone keeps calling another child with curly hair, a mean name about it, and says it in a teasing manner. The other child can say something like, I really like my hair, and I, don't like you saying mean things about it, or something, right? So you just want to teach them how to be assertive in those ways. And so that is it for the lecture. These are our 2 discussion questions this week that are based off the lecture. And so if you guys want to take a read over them. So the first one is providing the 3 different scenarios under the 1, 2, and 3. How might you respond to support children in the development of their talents and skills in those following situations? And so these go with the lecture and then also the text, right? And then the second one that you're provided with 2 different scenarios with the question, how might you respond to each of these comments from children to acknowledge differences and generalize sameness? So that's a really great one to also process. So that is it for this week. Thank you, everyone.